I always thought of myself as a careful wife, someone who paid attention to little things. That night, when I realized my husband had rushed out without his wallet, it didn't even cross my mind to hesitate. I simply grabbed the leather wallet from his desk, wrapped a shawl around my shoulders, and ordered a ride to the airport. If this story touched your heart, friends, please like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more touching stories. Thank you for being here. Nothing about it felt unusual. I was just doing what any loving partner would do, or so I believed. The house was drowning in a strange stillness when I left. It was past midnight, the kind of hour where every small sound seems louder and every beam of light sharper. My husband, Draymond, had left barely an hour earlier, claiming an urgent issue had erupted regarding a new company branch somewhere up north. He said he needed to take the earliest flight, fast, unexpected, and not open for discussion. I didn't argue. I rarely did. For 3 years, Draymond had been nothing but gentle, devoted, and caring. I had no reason to doubt the man who spoke so sweetly and kissed me goodbye as though he hated to leave. After organizing the papers he left scattered on his office desk, I was about to turn off the light when something dark peeked from under a stack of folders. The instant I saw it, my stomach tightened. His wallet. Not just a wallet, his ID, cards, money, everything he would need to travel. He never left home without it. That small detail, carelessly forgotten, set off a quiet alarm inside me. I called him several times, pacing the floor with restless energy. Each call rang and rang without an answer. Maybe he was already on the road. Maybe his phone was silenced. Maybe he was distracted. It didn't matter. His flight was at 2 a.m., and it took about 45 minutes to reach the airport at this hour. There was time, but not much. I didn't drive at night. The glare from headlights blinded me easily, and our driver had already clocked out for the day. So I grabbed my coat, slipped out into the cold, and requested a ride through an app. My hands trembled slightly as I pressed the confirmation button, the wallet clutched tightly in my other hand. A few minutes later, the app notified me that my driver, a man named Booker, was on his way. His car, a black sedan, arrived sooner than expected and rolled to a stop by the gate. The cold air slapped my face as I stepped outside. I slipped into the back seat, inhaling the faint, sterile smell of car freshener. Booker, a middle-aged man with silver streaks touching his temples, glanced at me through the rearview mirror. His eyes were sharp, but unreadable. I greeted him, apologized for the late hour, and told him I needed to get to the domestic terminal as soon as possible. He nodded silently and started driving. From the start, the car felt unusually quiet. No radio, no casual chatter, just the steady hum of the engine and the whisper of tires against asphalt. Street lights cast long orange strokes through the windows as we moved through nearly empty roads. I kept checking my phone, hoping for a response from Draymond. Nothing. I told myself not to overthink, but the silence around me felt heavier with each passing minute. And Booker, he kept glancing into the rearview mirror. Not once or twice, but constantly. Watching me. Watching the road behind us. Watching everything. A strange uneasiness crept over me, but I swallowed it and looked out the window instead. The city lights faded behind us, replaced by long stretches of dark highway, each mile taking me closer to the airport, and something I never could have imagined. But just as the airport lights appeared ahead, Booker did something that shattered every assumption I had made about that night. The glow of the airport grew brighter as we approached, a sprawling constellation of lights against the early morning darkness. Relief washed through me. All I wanted was to hand Draymond his wallet, give him a quick kiss, and watch him disappear safely through security. I even pictured the expression he would make when he realized how close he had come to missing his flight. That familiar image comforted me until the car suddenly slowed down in a way that didn't feel right. Booker should have pulled up to the main drop-off area, a place always buzzing with passengers and bright lights. Instead, he bypassed it entirely. He kept driving until the very end of the lane, where several streetlights had burned out long ago. The darkness seemed to cling to that corner, thick and uneasy. A prickle worked its way up my spine. "Excuse me?" I said softly, leaning forward. "This isn't the main entrance." He didn't answer. The car rolled to a stop near a massive concrete pillar that cast a long shadow across the sidewalk. A cold gust swept across the asphalt, making the moment feel even more surreal. I tightened my grip on the door handle, desperate for the comfort of the brightly lit terminal just a few yards away. Finally, the car stopped. I pulled the handle to get out. The door didn't open. I tried again, harder. Nothing. I reached for the other side. Locked. Every door locked. A choking fear surged up through my chest. Why did you lock the doors?" My voice cracked despite my attempt to stay calm. Booker didn't look at me. His hands were glued to the steering wheel as if he were holding it together with pure force. Sweat beaded along his hairline, glimmering under the faint light. "Don't get out," he said quietly. "Not here." My heart thumped painfully. "Open the door, please. Let me go." Still no movement, not even a glance in my direction. Outside, the area felt too still, too empty. No travelers, no workers, no one. All those crime stories I'd brushed off online suddenly came rushing back. I was a woman alone, locked in a stranger's car at the edge of an airport at 1 a.m. Everything about the situation screamed danger. I begged you, whispered, tears gathering. "If you want money, take my wallet, my jewelry, just let me out." His voice came again, rougher than before, shaking slightly. "You must stay inside the car. In 5 minutes, you'll understand everything. I need you to trust me." Trust him? How could I trust someone who trapped me? Fear thickened in my throat. I curled into the corner of the back seat, clutching my purse like a shield. My breaths came uneven, trembling as the seconds dragged by. The digital clock on the dashboard flicked from 1:07 to 1:08, then 1:09, each minute stretching long and torturous. Booker stayed perfectly still, except for his eyes, which darted repeatedly to the mirrors with frantic precision. It was as though he was waiting for something, or someone, to appear out of the darkness. By the time the 5th minute approached, I could barely hear anything over the pounding of my own heartbeat. And then the world erupted. Sirens wailed out of nowhere. Blue and red lights burst across the dark edges of the terminal as 3 police cruisers swarmed towards us, flanking Booker's sedan from the front and back. The sudden explosion of sound and color threw my senses into chaos. I screamed, convinced they were here to arrest him, or worse. Officers leapt from the cars with rifles drawn, racing toward the dark space beside our vehicle, shouting orders that echoed off the concrete. My stomach lurched as I realized dawned. They weren't coming for us. They were descending on something lurking in the shadows, exactly where I would have stepped if the door had opened. My body turned ice cold, and when I finally saw who the officers dragged out of the darkness, my terror transformed into something far more devastating. From the back seat, I watched the police converge on a figure I hadn't even noticed in the darkness. The commotion felt unreal, like watching a nightmare unfold through someone else's eyes. Officers tackled a man cloaked in a heavy black coat, dragging him to the ground with swift, practiced force. He kicked and writhed, but there were too many of them. His cap fell off, revealing a face twisted with rage and desperation. Something metallic slid out of his pocket. A folding knife. An officer lifted a cloth from his other pocket, damp, crumpled, and eerily familiar. Even inside the car, the chemical smell struck me like a slap. Chloroform. My hand flew to my mouth. My skin crawled. That man, who had been waiting silently in the dark, had intended to grab me the moment I stepped out. Had Booker not locked the door, my fate would have been sealed within seconds. My legs shook uncontrollably as the officers handcuffed the man and hauled him away. I didn't know what to feel. Fear for what almost happened, or confusion about why a random stranger had been waiting specifically at the spot where I was dropped off. Before I could gather my thoughts, one of the officers approached the driver's side, speaking to Booker with calm familiarity. The way he addressed him, respectful, almost deferential, made no sense. Why would officers treat a rideshare driver like someone they answered to? Then Booker finally turned toward me. For the first time that night, he looked at me directly. His hardened expression softened into something almost sorrowful. "Miss Sire, you're safe now." The way he said my name sent a jolt through me. I had never told him who I was. "Who are you?" I whispered, gripping the seat to steady myself. He inhaled deeply. "I'm not just a driver. My real name is Booker Langford. I worked for your father. I was his head of security." My mind flashed back to childhood memories, faint images of a tall man who used to escort my father through crowds, who carried a silent strength and a steady gaze. I hadn't heard that name in years. He had retired before I turned 15. Booker continued, voice thick with something between regret and loyalty. "Before he passed away, your father asked me to keep an eye on you from a distance. He was worried that people might get close to you for the wrong reasons." My heart dropped. "But why tonight? Why were you driving me?" He clenched his jaw. "Because I received information that someone planned to abduct you at the airport. The man they just arrested," he gestured outside, "was hired to take you. The moment you stepped out of the car, he would have used that cloth." I couldn't breathe. My throat burned. Who would hire someone to kidnap me? Why? Booker didn't reply. Instead, he slowly lifted his hand and pointed toward the gleaming glass windows of the terminal's second floor. My gaze followed. There, clearly illuminated behind the glass, stood two figures. My husband and my closest friend, Draymond and Kenyatta. Not looking shocked or worried, but furious, their faces twisted with frustration as they stared down at the commotion below. Kenyatta clutched Draymond's arm like she had every right to. Two suitcases sat at their feet. Real suitcases, travel bags, not for business. And then I saw it. Draymond wrapped an arm around her waist. Casually, intimately, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. My chest tightened. My vision blurred. The truth hit like a blade. They were just betraying me. They wanted me gone. But even that heartbreaking revelation was only the beginning, because once I opened Draymond's wallet again, everything became far, far worse. The drive away from the airport felt dreamlike, as though I were floating outside my own body. Booker guided the car onto the highway, and the flashing police lights faded behind us. But the image of Draymond and Kenyatta standing together, side by side, united, burned in my mind like a brand. For 3 years, I had been married to a man I trusted completely. For even longer, I had confided in a friend I believed would protect me as fiercely as I protected her. Now I understood the truth. Both of them had orchestrated my disappearance. My chest ached with the pain, so deep it felt physical. Booker let me sit in silence. He didn't rush me, didn't offer empty platitudes. He simply kept driving with the same steady hands he must have used years ago to keep my father safe. At some point, through the haze of heartbreak, he spoke gently. "Zai, open the wallet." My fingers trembled as I unzipped the leather. Everything looked normal, ID, cards, cash, until I noticed something hidden between the bills. A folded paper, neatly tucked. I slid it out, expecting maybe a receipt. It wasn't. It was a one-way plane ticket. 2 tickets, actually, side by side, with the names Draymond Langford and Kenyatta Hale. My stomach lurched violently. I pressed a hand to my mouth, trying not to scream. My husband hadn't forgotten his wallet by mistake. He didn't need it. He had his passport in his pocket, and the only tickets that mattered were in this secret fold. They were planning to leave together after I'd disappeared. But Booker motioned again. Check the back. Tucked behind the plane tickets was another document, a thick sheet of paper with my name at the top. I recognized the format immediately. An insurance policy. An life insurance policy. Issued only 3 months ago. Worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Beneficiary, Draymond Langford. My vision swam. My breath stuttered. Each puzzle piece slid into place with horrifying clarity. Draymond's forgotten wallet wasn't a mistake. It was bait, a lure. He had planted it on his own desk so I would find it and rush out alone at midnight. They had expected me to step out of the car straight into the hitman's grasp. If everything had gone according to their plan, I would simply vanish. No body, no explanation, just a missing woman. A grieving husband, devastated at the tragedy. And after a respectful period of time, he would receive the life insurance payout and run away with Kenyatta to whatever destination their tickets promised. The betrayal was so sharp, it hollowed something out inside me. But underneath the pain, something else began to form. A cold, clear fire. I stared at myself in the vanity mirror of the car and barely recognized the reflection. My eyes, usually soft and trusting, had hardened. The woman looking back at me was no longer the obedient, gentle wife who smoothed over every discomfort. She was someone who had been pushed past the breaking point and had discovered steel beneath the surface. Booker studied me through the mirror and nodded slightly. "Good," he murmured. "That fight in your eyes, it means you're ready. He doesn't know you saw anything tonight. That is your advantage." He was right. Draymond thought I was still naive, still blind, still his. "Go home," Booker instructed. "Pretend nothing happened. Let him believe the kidnapping simply failed. We'll use his arrogance to destroy him." The car glided across the bridge that separated the airport district from the residential neighborhoods. With each mile, the version of me who trusted blindly faded further into the distance. A new version took her place. Quiet, calculating, resolute. When Booker dropped me off near the gate, he handed me a tiny device no bigger than a button. "A microphone," he explained. "Hide it somewhere he won't notice. We need his words as much as his actions." I slipped it into my coat pocket, feeling its weight like a vow. The night air bit into my skin as I crept into my house like a stranger entering enemy territory. The lavender scent that once comforted me now felt suffocating. I set the stage carefully, fixing my hair, calming my face, placing the wallet somewhere believable. Then I settled on the sofa, pretending to have fallen asleep. Minutes later, the front door burst open. Draymond entered, sweating and shaking, not from concern, but from rage at a plan gone wrong. He called my name. I opened my eyes innocently, but what Draymond didn't realize was that the real performance was only beginning. and I was no longer the clueless wife he thought he controlled. I blinked a few times, letting my eyes adjust as though I'd just been startled awake. The soft glow of the lamp and the faint hum of the television created the illusion of a peaceful night. I lifted my head, feigning confusion. "Draymond, why are you home? Weren't you supposed to be on the plane?" He froze in the entryway, his tie crooked, his face damp with sweat. Not the sweat of rushed travel, but the sweat of panic. He stared at me as though I were a ghost. For a moment, he didn't answer. He only looked around the room, scanning for signs that I had been gone. When he finally spoke, his tone was shaky but rehearsed. I realized my wallet was missing on the way there. I couldn't board without it. Then there was some traffic, accident on the highway, so I just came back." He wiped his forehead, trying to act like the picture of an inconvenient husband stuck in a minor crisis. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have found the performance believable. But I saw everything now. The way his eyes darted, checking whether the house looked exactly as he left it, the slight tremble in his hands. I got up and approached him gently. "I was worried too. I had tried calling you." He nodded, pretending to be comforted, though his mind was clearly racing. I reached toward the sofa like it had just occurred to me. "Oh, look what I found. It must have slipped between the cushions." Draymond's gaze snapped to where the wallet poked out from the crack between the armrest and the seat. He rushed forward, snatching it with almost desperate relief. His fingers shook as he checked the contents. Everything was exactly where it should be, exactly as he needed it to be. "Thank God, you've saved me, love, really." Then he pulled me into a hug, warm, affectionate, believable. But underneath the cologne he always wore, I caught a faint floral scent. Not mine, Kenyatta's. A cold numbness crawled through my stomach, but I kept my face soft, my posture relaxed. "Go shower. You must be exhausted." He agreed quickly, almost too quickly, and hurried upstairs. The water was already running in the bathroom. His suit jacket lay tossed across the bed, but Booker's voice echoed in my mind. "Place it somewhere he won't think to check." My eyes landed on his briefcase, the one he carried everywhere, the one he treated like an extension of himself. I quietly unzipped a small inner pocket and slipped the microphone deep into the corner. It disappeared into the lining, almost impossible to see. I closed everything back with the same careless pattern he always used. When the bathroom door opened, Draymond stepped out wrapped in a towel. I handed him the clothes I'd laid out, smiling with perfect tenderness. He kissed my forehead, reassured that everything was under control. Later that night, he fell asleep quickly, exhausted from failure and fear. But I lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling. Through a pair of discreet earbuds, I listened to the live feed from the microphone tucked inside his briefcase. Hours before dawn, I heard him slip out of bed. A zipper, a click, a phone dialing from inside the briefcase. Then a woman's voice crackled through the receiver. "Kenyatta." My pulse hammered. Their conversation wasn't romantic. It was frantic, angry, full of curses and panic. Draymond raged about the failed kidnapping. Kenyatta pressed him about the debt deadline. They spoke openly, without restraint, believing I was asleep and clueless. When Kenyatta brought up the old warehouse, my blood ran cold. She urged him to get the safe code from me. Draymond agreed, and he planned to start the manipulation the next day. But before he could put his plan into motion, I had already decided to strike first and dismantle his world piece by piece. I ended the recording on my phone just as the call between Draymond and Kenyatta dissolved into static. Every word they spoke had burrowed into my bones like ice. Their desperation wasn't just financial, it was predatory. They weren't merely plotting to manipulate me, they were preparing to push me into a corner until I broke. But they had no idea I already knew everything. I waited until Draymond left for work the next morning, all smiles and casual affection, acting as though he had a perfectly normal day ahead. The moment the front door closed behind him, I sprang into action. I called Booker. Within 30 minutes, his black sedan pulled into my driveway silently, like a shadow arriving on command. I stepped outside with a backpack stuffed with documents, my hand steady now, not from fear, but purpose. Booker listened without interruption as I recounted the phone call word for word. When I finished, he rested a hand on the steering wheel and nodded once, the gesture filled with grim approval. "We start protecting your assets today," he said. The next few hours were a whirlwind of signatures, statements, and rapid legal maneuvers. At the bank, I froze every card connected to our joint account and opened a new one in my name alone. I transferred almost all remaining funds out of reach, leaving only a token amount so Draymond wouldn't immediately suspect anything. At the office of my father's trusted attorney, we drafted an asset protection directive, dense with legal terms but ironclad. Nothing involving my properties, portfolio, or company shares could be moved, sold, or transferred without my full presence and verified consent. It was a fortress made of paperwork. By the time we walked out into the daylight, I felt a small spark of something I hadn't felt in days. Strength, independence, control. Booker gave me a proud glance. He said, "You're your father's daughter." It was a compliment that warmed something deep inside me. That afternoon, Draymond returned home carrying a massive bouquet of red roses and a gift bag with a pharmacy logo. He plastered on a grin, warm and doting, the perfect picture of a devoted husband trying to make amends for stressing his wife. "For you," he said, presenting the flowers with exaggerated sweetness. "I know things have been tense. I want you to take care of yourself." He also handed me the small package. Inside was a bottle of premium imported vitamins. Expensive, fancy packaging, something meant to look thoughtful. But the seal was slightly crooked, and the glue on the edges didn't match the manufacturer's usual consistency. I felt the faintest tremor of alarm, but I hid it under a smile. "You're so considerate," I murmured. When he went upstairs to wash up, I opened the bottle. A strange chemical scent drifted out. I poured a capsule into my palm and felt dread prick through my skin. The powder inside was chalky, not the usual compressed supplement form. A grain stuck to my finger. I didn't need a lab test to know something was wrong. At dinner, Draymond watched me like a hawk while encouraging me again and again to take one of the vitamins. His eyes followed the pill as I lifted it toward my lips. I excused myself to get water, slipped the capsule down the drain, and popped a small mint from my purse into my mouth. When I returned, I tipped my head back and swallowed with a dramatic sigh. His shoulders visibly relaxed. He believed it. But the poison never touched me. Over the next few days, he brought up the vitamins constantly, observing me for signs of weakness, stumbling, dizziness, fatigue. I gave him none. Instead, I began waking early, cooking, praying, smiling. His frustration grew with every passing hour, and I knew it was time to accelerate my own strategy. Late on the third morning, I called him at work with cheerful enthusiasm. "I've been thinking, we should celebrate. A special dinner tonight. Just you, me, and Kenyatta. I miss her." The silence on the other end of the line was heavy. Then he agreed. Trapped himself. And her. That night at our dinner table, I cracked the first fault line beneath their feet and watched their confidence crumble in real time. That evening, the house glowed softly with warm light. I prepared every detail with deliberate care. Candles flickering gently on the dining table, my father's finest china arranged neatly, a beautifully cooked meal placed right in the center. It looked like a peaceful celebration, but beneath the calm surface, every element was part of a calculated performance. I wore a modest burgundy dress, elegant but understated. My makeup was soft, controlled, almost serene. I wanted to look exactly like the woman Draymond believed I still was, Gentle, unsuspecting, easy to deceive. At 8 p.m. sharp, the doorbell chimed. Draymond practically glided to the door, his smile too wide, too eager. When he opened it, Kenyatta stepped inside with a bright gift bag and her usual artificial warmth. She wore a tight dress, bold red, the kind she always insisted complemented her energy. Her eyes darted over the room, then landed on me. "Oh, Zir, you look so beautiful," she chirped, her voice dripping with sugar. I returned the expression with calm politeness. "You too. It's been a while." We exchanged the traditional cheek kisses. Her perfume, sweet, expensive, was the same scent I had found lingering on Draymond the night he returned. We sat at the table and I served them as though nothing in the world had changed. For a few minutes, the conversation consisted of small jokes and shallow chatter. Draymond and Kenyatta traded glances, subtle and familiar, though they tried to minimize it. But nothing escaped me anymore. Halfway through the meal, I placed my fork down carefully and dabbed at my lips with a napkin. "I had the strangest dream last night," I said softly. Draymond paused mid-bite. Kenyatta's hand froze on her wineglass. "A dream?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Yes," I smiled, letting my eyes lower thoughtfully. "About a wealthy woman who trusted her husband and her closest friend, only to discover they were planning to kill her for her inheritance." Kenyatta's face instantly lost its color. My husband coughed violently, choking on his food. I continued in a calm, storytelling voice. "In the dream, the husband pretended to take a late-night flight, and the friend, well, she helped arrange a man to wait in the shadows with chloroform." I paused, then added quietly, "Very detailed dream, actually." The room grew so silent I could hear the faint crackle of the candles. Draymond tried to laugh. Wow, that's kinda dark, don't you think?" "Oh, yes," I replied sweetly, "but luckily it was just a dream, because it would be unimaginable for a loving husband and a loyal friend to plan such a thing in real life." My words were soft, but they sliced like a blade. Before either of them could recover, I leaned forward with a gentle sigh. "Actually, that dream made me think about mortality, about what happens to our possessions if something unexpected occurs." Both of them looked at me sharply now. "So," I said lightly, "I updated my will today." Kenyatta's wineglass slipped slightly in her grip. I smiled. "If I die, whether naturally or by suspicious circumstances, all of my assets immediately go to charity. Every account, every property, every share. A foundation for orphans and cancer patients will manage everything." Their shock was palpable. No spouse, no friend, no relative receives even a single dollar. Draymond's mouth opened, then closed. He stuttered. "Zir, that's extreme. Why would you do that?" "Because," I answered softly, "I know you can take care of yourself, my love." Across from me, two greedy hearts cracked at the same time. Their plan had just become worthless. Killing me would no longer win them anything. They were trapped, and they knew it. Neither noticed the small hidden camera Booker had installed earlier, quietly recording every flicker of panic. Dinner ended abruptly. They left separately that night, shaken and whispering to each other. Their confidence was collapsing faster than they could rebuild it. But I knew they wouldn't stop. Cornered animals become dangerous, and Draymond's debts were suffocating him. The very next night, he revealed just how desperate he really was, and his next move proved he was willing to cross every line left. That night, the air between Draymond and Kenyatta shifted from panic to raw hostility. They didn't go home to rest or pretend everything was normal. Instead, they fled to Kenyatta's small apartment across town, an apartment I hadn't known existed, though I suspected it was their hideaway all along. Inside that cramped living room, their fear finally spilled out in the open. Draymond paced like a cornered animal, muttering curses under his breath. His phone buzzed nonstop, flashing unknown numbers, creditors, enforcers, bookies. He threw it onto the sofa, but it kept vibrating like a ticking time bomb. Kenyatta sat hunched over, attacking her nails with her teeth. She blamed him for everything: the failed kidnapping, the exposure at dinner, even my sudden spiritual enlightenment. She hissed that he should have handled me better, that he should have pressured me sooner, that he should have never let me change the will. Her voice grew sharper with every word. He snapped back, calling her stupid, calling her impulsive. Their insults ping-ponged around the apartment until they were both screaming loud enough for neighbors to hear. Two vipers striking each other now that the prey they wanted was out of reach. But their rage only lasted until the next threatening message arrived. "Pay what you owe by tomorrow or we come for you." Draymond's skin went gray. Kenyatta stopped shouting. Suddenly, their fear aligned again. They needed money, fast. And since killing me no longer held financial value, they needed another way to force it out of me. In that frantic, poisonous atmosphere, Draymond made his decision. A decision darker than anything he had attempted before. "We take her," he growled. "We take her from the house, we tie her up, we force her to sign everything back. The will, the properties, the powers of attorney, everything." Kenyatta swallowed hard. "You think she'll just sign?" "She will when she's terrified enough. You trust her. You'll talk to her first, calm her, then the men will step in." 3 men, hired muscle he had contacted before, thugs who didn't ask questions. They met him the next afternoon in a dingy coffee shop on the outskirts of the city. He laid out the plan: break into my home at night, restrain me, and make me sign every document necessary to transfer my wealth. For the right price, they agreed. That evening, just as the sun dipped low, they piled into a dark van with tinted windows. Draymond and Kenyatta rode in the front, the hired men in the back. The van rumbled toward my gated community. But something already felt wrong to them. The house was dark, too dark. No porch light, no kitchen light, no glow from the living room curtains. And my car was still in the garage. "She's home," Draymond insisted. "She always keeps lights off to save energy." It was a weak lie to his own ears, but he pushed forward. He unlocked the gate with his spare key. They crept to the front door. He turned the key slowly, listening for movement. Nothing. They rushed inside. The thugs fanned through the living room, kitchen, hallways, silent signals passing between them. Draymond and Kenyatta bolted up the stairs, expecting to find me asleep in the master bedroom. But the bed was perfectly made. No clothes scattered, no glass of water on the nightstand, no soft breathing from the pillows. The room was empty. Fear tightened around Draymond's throat. He tore through every corner of the house, the guest rooms, my study, even the laundry room. Nothing. "She's not here," one of the men shouted from downstairs. Draymond kicked a table so hard a vase shattered across the floor. Then a soft sound chimed. A laptop on the coffee table lit up, screen glowing in the dark. A video call was connecting. Draymond rushed toward it, and there I was. My face filling the screen, calm, composed,
wearing a black hijab that framed my expression like steel. "Good evening," I said, looking directly at them. "I see you brought company." Draymond stuttered, "Where are you? Come home right now." I tilted my head. "No." Then I lifted my phone into frame and tapped the corner of the screen where a small red symbol blinked. Live. And the viewer count climbing. Your entire break-in is being streamed to a secure private server. Lawyers, police contacts, several people who care about the truth. They're all watching. Kenyatta's knees buckled. "If anything happens to me," I continued, "every second of footage will be sent to the authorities." Draymond's face drained of color. But that was only the beginning, because then I mentioned the one thing that lit greed back in his eyes, the existence of hidden cash and gold, and I gave them a location, a very specific location. What they didn't know was that the treasure waiting in that warehouse was not wealth, but the trap that would end everything.
The moment I described the hidden fortune, Draymond's expression twisted, fear and greed wrestling in his eyes until desperation won. He didn't question how I knew the exact location or why I was so calm. He didn't even consider the possibility of a trap. All he heard was the promise of salvation buried beneath an old machine in my father's abandoned textile warehouse. He slammed the laptop shut so hard the screen flickered, cutting off the connection. Then he spun around and ordered the hired men to follow him. Kenyatta grabbed her purse and scrambled after him, her heels clacking across my tile floor. They fled through the front door like animals chasing a scent, fully convinced their payday was finally within reach. They didn't know Booker and I were already trailing them. We followed at a distance, my phone tracking the small GPS I had slipped into Draymond's briefcase earlier. The red dot moved steadily toward the industrial outskirts of the city, toward the abandoned warehouse I had told him about. The building loomed like a forgotten skeleton at the end of a cracked road. Rusted metal beams jutted out of the roof, and weeds consumed what was once the loading dock. The gang tore down the fence and forced the main door open, their flashlights slicing through the dust-filled darkness. Booker parked far enough away to avoid detection. "Stay here," he instructed gently. "Let them damn themselves." I nodded, though my heart pounded like a drum inside my chest. Inside, Draymond barked orders with manic energy. The thugs slammed their crowbars into the concrete, chipping away layer after layer. Dust clouds swirled through their flashlight beams. Sweat soaked their shirts. Every strike echoed through the warehouse like the ticking of a countdown. Finally, one of the men shouted, "We hit something!" They cleared the cracked cement until the top of a metal safe appeared. Draymond let out a strangled laugh. Kenyatta pressed a trembling hand to her chest, ecstatic with relief. The men hauled the safe out and set it on the broken floor. Draymond crouched, spun the combination lock exactly as I'd told him, and held his breath. Click. He threw open the door, expecting gold, bundles of cash, freedom. Instead, the beam of his flashlight illuminated a neatly arranged stack of papers. Not treasure, evidence. Copies of his gambling debts. Documents showing every illegal transfer he'd made from my accounts. Printouts of messages between him and Kenyatta plotting to manipulate me. Photos of their secret meetings at hotels and airports. Signed statements about forged signatures and forged trust. And on top, a single white envelope bearing my handwriting. He snatched it and tore it open. Inside was one line. "The only riches here are the truth. The police are on their way." At that exact second, blinding white light flooded through the warehouse windows. The roar of engines filled the air. A voice boomed through a megaphone. "This is the police. The building is surrounded. Drop your weapons and get on the ground." Panic exploded among them. The thugs bolted toward the back exit, only to be met by a SWAT team bursting through. Kenyatta screamed and fell to her knees. Draymond collapsed beside the safe, clutching the incriminating papers with shaking hands.
Within seconds, they were all pinned to the floor, wrists bound, their freedom evaporating like mist. Only then did the front doors open. Officers created a clear path. My heels clicked softly on the concrete as I stepped inside, a calm shadow amid the chaos. Booker walked behind me like a guardian. Draymond lifted his head, eyes swollen with tears. He crawled toward me on his knees, begging, saying he'd made a mistake, that he loved me, that we could fix everything. I stepped back, refusing to let him touch even the hem of my coat. "Love?" I whispered. "You planned to kill me." Kenyatta wailed, blaming him, blaming me, blaming fate. She reached out as if I should pity her. I didn't. I turned to the officers. "You can take them." They were dragged out into the night, screaming, pleading, monstrous illusions now stripped bare. 6 months later. The courtroom had echoed with their guilt. The evidence was overwhelming. Recordings, footage, documents, testimony. Draymond was sentenced to a long stretch in a maximum security prison. Kenyatta, too, received years behind bars. Their lives, once built on charm and manipulation, crumbled into dust. My life, on the other hand, rebuilt itself piece by piece. I renovated my home, reinforced my company, strengthened my spirit. I stepped into leadership roles with unwavering clarity, becoming a woman my father would have been proud of. And one bright morning, I returned to the airport, not trembling, not rushing to save someone else, but ready to take a journey for myself, a journey of healing and faith. Booker walked beside me until the security line. He wasn't just my protector anymore. He was family. As I stepped toward my gate, suitcase rolling softly behind me, I paused at the very spot where my life had almost ended months ago. Instead of fear, I felt gratitude. I survived. I rebuilt. I rose. And now I finally had the freedom to live on my own terms. If today's story touched your heart or kept you hooked, you can show your love by sending a super thanks. Your support helps me continue creating more powerful life stories for you. Thank you, truly, for always being so kind and supportive. I can't wait to read your thoughts about this story. On your screen right now, you'll find 2 new stories that I highly recommend, filled with emotions, twists, and lessons. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe for many more inspiring life stories. Until the next one, sending you love, respect, and gratitude. See you in the next story.